Well, good evening. Welcome to the State of the City address for the City of Canby. This is the first time I've been able to, or we've actually scheduled it to occur in an evening like this. So I appreciate all of you being here this evening, and hopefully there'll be more that are watching it at home or will watch it later. Usually I do a State of the City address for the Chamber of Commerce at their luncheon. Usually it's February or March, so I just did that last week. And then occasionally some of the smaller groups in town, so I like the Rotary Club. I've done Kiwanis in the past, so I'm hoping that we can make this the evening piece here, an annual event. So it's not your traditional, I don't have a teleprompter. So I usually have staff help me put together a PowerPoint presentation, just kind of keep me on track, but also give a little bit more information than, and have it be a little bit more engaging than me sitting up here and just talking at you. So I don't know what to expect from all of you. I'm sure there will be questions, and we'll have plenty of time to do that. So jot them down or make a mental note of it, or heck, just jump in and we'll go from there. So there's snacks in the back. Help yourself. Bathrooms are out and to the right if you go out. So if you need anything, don't hesitate. Or if you're truly upset and don't want to talk to me or listen to me anymore, I totally understand. So, okay, I have the power of the clicker, so we'll get going here. So, a couple of things. So the PowerPoint and my conversation is really kind of broken up into all the different departments of the city. So you're all intelligent people and you can read. So I'm not going to sit here and read slides to you, but I will hit some high points for you that I thought were super important and hopefully provide some extra information on for you. So the administration department for the city, which is really kind of headed up by, the city manager heads up all of the departments, but the administration team really handles, so that's Eileen, our city manager, the HR department, our HR director, finance director, things like that. And so a couple of key things that we did here in 24-25 that we're really proud of is we formed the Canby Community Partnership. And so what that is the city manager meets with Canby Utility, the school district, the fire district, just other non-direct city agencies. So they meet monthly or quarterly, and it's just so all those different entities can get together, talk about what's going on in the city, what are they working on, so that everybody's kind of collaborating and not overlapping, but trying to work in a cohesive teamwork kind of situation. We received a grant from Clackamas County to work on some homeless initiatives in Canby, so there's going to be more coming up on that in the coming year. And then the Canby Adult Center, I know I was just talking about it with Mr. Ewert, who sits on our planning commission. And so the Canby Adult Center has purchased the Methodist Church on the north side of town. And so they are in the works of taking that over. They're going to remodel it, and that's where the new Canby Adult Center will be. It's going to be a much bigger location for the adult center and allows them to, more services, more activities and things like that for the seniors in our community. So everyone's very excited about seeing that happen. It will be an adjustment to go from south end of town to north end of town, but I think it's a win-win for our community in that regards. The follow-up question usually then is what is the city going to do with the old property? We don't know yet. We're not sure what we're going to do. That is a topic of conversation this fiscal year, which ends in the end of June and probably into next year. There's a lot that could be done, and it's one of those rare things where the city owns the building, but the school district owns the dirt. So that kind of means that we got to work with the school district on what will become of that piece of property. So things in progress coming up. Our city council is working on our operational policies and guidelines. So the last couple of years, really since I've been mayor, we have not, as a group, looked at our policies and guidelines is how we act and handle things as a council. So we had a subcommittee, and Councilor Padden, who's in the back there, was one of the members on the committee to kind of help rework those and fine tune those for us. So we're going to be approving those soon. We are going to be looking at the city charter and looking at what things on that might need to be updated and improved on. And then both of our collective bargaining teams, so we have the ASME, which is our city employees union, and then the Canby PD union. Both of their contracts are end this year, so we are going to be working on those contracts coming up. So we talked a little bit about, so earlier this calendar year, the city council got together with a facilitator and with the department heads and worked on our council goals. So what we really did was revisited the goals that we had probably over the last 2 years, made any tweaks that we needed to those, make sure that they're still moving forward. Is there anything different that we need to add? And so we've done that, and we're going to be approving those goals and whatnot here coming up soon. And then the other big piece that we've been working on is our citywide risk and safety programs. So we've worked with Canby Fire, the county, and we've got a couple of pieces in progress that we're finishing up that will really it will dictate how we handle wildfires, ice storms, major catastrophe kinds of things, and what our role would be as a city in those regards, as well as then how do we work with all the other departments and districts in the area to keep Canby moving and keep everyone safe. The swim center. How many of you go to the swim center? Okay. The Canby Swim Center is, built in the mid to late 70s. It is a well-loved resource here in our community, and I tip my hat to Eric Leitner and his team. He's the pool director. They hold the pool sometimes together with duct tape and baling twine. I think just about everything has been replaced in the pool, and now they're looking at what needs to be done underground. And so there is quite a bit of expense for the pool, but again, every year the citizens of Canby approve the bond to keep the pool going. And so it's the staff there that really over the decades have kept it going. A ton of swim lessons, lap swims, swim teams. So the Gators, they do their swimming, and so does, and the swim center actually, with our partnership with the school district, provides swimming for all second graders in the school district. So that's a big thing so a lot of the kids don't get that opportunity, but we do provide those as part of our partnership with the school district. So some accomplishments, like I said, so 18,000, almost 19,000 swimming lessons here to Canby residents. Again, the partnership with the school district, and then, the Canby High School swim team, and then the Canby Swim Club, or the Gators, use that facility for their lessons and practices and things. A lot of that, again, with us being surrounded by rivers, comes in handy for the kids to learn how to swim if they're going to be doing water activities and things like that. We are looking at, in the next fiscal year, 25, 26, so that's going to be next year or later this year into next year, but we do have plans to remodel the swim center. So it's going to be upgrades to the bathrooms, the locker rooms, some additional space to the front of the pool area so that people can just a lot better access to the pool. It is a little bit, what's the term? Stripped down plan from what we originally wanted to do. But this is another piece where the school district owns the dirt, the city owns the building. And so how much do you invest in a building on dirt that you don't own? So that's some of the pieces that we have to figure out regarding that aspect. But it'll be a great remodel when it's all done. And so if you are using the pool when that starts, just be patient. It'll look amazing when it's done. Our economic development team has continued to be very busy. Another year of big night out, the light up the night, first Thursday night market. And we keep looking at figuring out other things to add to the town. Canby Beer Library successfully opened their tap room and their food carts. How many of you had a chance to go there? And okay, good. Does everybody have a favorite food cart that they want to share? Here, I'll cover the microphone. No, it's just the beer. I heard somebody just say I just go for the beer. The root beer. There you go. I like that. We did again this year for the holidays. We did a shop, dine, and play kind of raffle, shop around town, keep it local during the holidays. This year it was our second year, so we had more businesses involved and we had a lot more Canby citizens involved. So basically, as you got a punch card, and as you spent money, then you could turn it in for a raffle at the end of the season. And then again, our economic development team was really helpful in working on our hazard mitigation plan. So again, that's more along the safety pieces that we've just needed to do as a city have grown. Some of those things have gotten outdated, and we've needed to spend the money to do that. Yeah.
What does that mean, natural hazard mitigation?
So natural hazard mitigation would be like ice storms, the wildfires, floods, those things that, yes, yeah. Not man-made hazards. But also, also back to the other piece earlier in the slide as well, something that we've had to plan for is train derailments. What do we do? And we have a train that runs through town, and it's not always an Amtrak, and it's not always carrying wood. So like, what are those other features that we need to be prepared for if something like that happens? Yeah, our economic development team has been busy and looking forward to another busy year. We're looking at doing an update to, I'm really sorry about that. That's embarrassing, sorry. So we're looking at doing a parking update. Some people think that there's a parking problem downtown. So we're going to work with a committee or a consultant to hopefully figure that out and figure out if there truly is a problem parking downtown and what we need to do to maybe course correct on that. We've done a number of community enhancement grants, and those were for nonprofits and not-for-profits. So we set money aside so people could do basically like a grant process, so people or groups could apply for money. We are working on recruiting a hotel for Canby. That has been a major thing that we've been working on. We have had some interest in a hotel coming to town, so that it's not happening, just with interest rates being where they are at, and what do we as a council want to do. We had one company offer to build it if we wanted to run and operate it. It was interesting. I said that at the chamber luncheon, and the amount of, like, the whole room, the heads were shaking, like, no, don't do it. And I couldn't agree more. I think the council is not the way we want to go. No. That would be a fun one for the Planning Commission, wouldn't it, Dan? Yeah, no. Heritage Landmark Commission, so again, continue to do a tremendous amount of grant writing for different landmarks here in town. We've been part of the Aurora Airport Master Planning. Our economic development team, myself, and a couple of our other city councilors have been involved in that. And then we have, they call it Canby South, but the OLCC is building a new warehouse, and it's gonna be over in our industrial park here. So that groundbreaking is gonna be coming up here soon, and so it'll be consolidating a couple of different warehouses, and I think eventually it may include office space. I think that's still to be determined by the OLCC, as far as I know. All right, more upcoming stuff with their economic development team. We're looking at sunsetting the urban renewal districts. So those of you that follow the city and understand what the urban renewal district is, so that started, gosh, almost 20 years ago, and we're coming to the end of that term of that life of that. And so basically we've taken out the amount of debt that we can on the district. We will be paying and writing that last check on that debt here in the beginning of June. And then from there, if any projects that might still need to be finished, we'll finish those, and then the district will sunset. So what that'll mean was that all the business development and growth that has occurred and generated more tax revenue will come back to the different taxing districts. So that's the city, it's the county, it's Canby Fire, the school district, though it'll go to the state, which will then, go into the state general basic education fund and go out that way. But, and so that'll be a big piece on that. We're working on our comprehensive plan. So the city, we are required by the state to do a comprehensive plan, and in that is basically the design and how Canby's going to grow over the next 20 years. And so we're a lot behind the 8 ball on this one. We've done some adaptations to the older one, but now is the time that we're really tearing apart the current plan and looking at what is that going to mean in terms of housing needs, economic needs, transportation needs. So there's been a tremendous amount of work already done on that. Ryan Potter, who's on our planning department team, has been a huge instrument in getting a lot of this done and getting this continuing moving forward. So if you're interested and you want to have an input on how Canby's going to grow over the next 20 years, definitely pay attention. We're going to be, the next piece like I said, is the transportation plan and what is that going to look like for Canby. 99, I don't think can get any wider, so what are we going to do, in that regards. The other aspect to the comprehensive plan is expanding our growth boundary, and what is that going to mean for growth for the city and whatnot, which I'll get to in a second. Canby Pioneer Industrial Park continues to grow. As many of you probably knew or had heard, that Amazon was planning on building a distribution center in our industrial park. That has since changed, and so they've sold that land back to the developer, who is going to be working on a couple of different spec buildings or another different tenant, I believe. So. But that's another piece, and now we're really down to a lot of just plots of land that are 2 to 5 acres. So that'll make way for a lot of smaller, maybe light industrial kinds of development to come into the industrial park. Let's see. Our library, did it not have the, maybe that's coming up, sorry. So the library. Our library director, Marissa, has been fantastic. She has jumped in, hitting the ground running, has done a tremendous job with our library. They've created a new strategic plan. They're updating policies and procedures that they have for the library. They've received 4 grants that they've worked on. If you've not seen the teen room, it's got this amazing mural in there. So very much done. The artist does a lot in terms of like the anime style of art and comic book drawing. And so they did the wall in the teen room, and it's really pretty neat. So get a chance to take a look at that. We have a new seed library. You can check out seeds, and you don't have to return them. Ooh, that didn't go over well. All right. So another big piece that the library is working on here coming up is, as many of you know, we are part of a library district, and so that really is what funds the operations of the library. And it's been very much askew, probably over the last 5 to 10 years. And so myself, Marissa, Eileen, our city manager, and those other cities that make up the library district are looking at how do we look at the district differently. We need to adjust the boundaries so that it's a little bit more equitable. Like, we have a lot of residents that check out our books from our library, but Oregon City gets the funds to operate their library when it should be coming to us in theory. So we want to make the theory a reality, and so that's going to be a big fight, probably with the greater county library board, but we're going to work on it. Right, Scott? Yes, sir. There you go. Everyone, I didn't fail to introduce, this is Scott Kaiser. He is the mayor of Molalla, and a good friend of mine, and so he's here today. So if you have any questions on Molalla, you can ask him. I'll just make stuff up for him. Our police department, the big thing with the police department is that we were rated the second safest city in the state of Oregon this past year, which is a tremendous honor for our police department and our police department and for our fire department who are part of that as well. We've always been in the top 10, I think, for like the last 15 years. So to come in second to West Lynn, I'd say is pretty spectacular. Our police department continues to do their grill and chill event, and it's really just a big meet and greet with the police department. And so they do that every summer. The police, they cook off hot dogs, and they have some of their team members set up with some of their equipment and things like that for the community to check out. So this past year, Eileen, what did they have? We had 1,500 people. I knew it was like double the year before. Yeah. We got a new canine unit. His name is Creed. He's a well-trained German Shepherd. I made this joke, I'll make it again. And he loves to ingest tennis balls, which are not good for dogs to eat. Ingest. He ate a tennis ball recently. And so, yeah, not real good for little puppy, right. Again, continuing to get safety grants for the city. And then we have brought Canby Municipal Court back into the city here. So basically the prosecution of misdemeanor crimes that occurred in the city limits, they had been moved to the county, and the county was handling that, which meant that fee collection, things like that was all most of it was going to the county. So the police chief, city staff, the council, and the judge worked on bringing it back into the city. So now we're getting those fees and fines to us and not sending them to the county. The planning department, so this is the slide I was looking for a little bit ago. The main piece on here that I want to show you all is in the upper right-hand corner. We were talking about our comprehensive plan. The brown area is what we're looking at in terms of potential expansion of our urban growth boundary. I say potential because those are areas right now that are being studied. And so all of that won't necessarily all come into the city. So it's a matter of what pieces of it will. And that's where planning department, city council, and then the planning commission are looking at, and then this committee that we have on our comprehensive plan are looking at what's the best strategy to do that. And so part of the requirement by the state is that we have to have 20 years of developable land, and that's both economic and housing development. And so we're required to. It's one of those fun things by the state that they hand down to us, and we kind of have to take it. And so we got to do the best we can with it. And so that's why we're looking at how do we do that. And so obviously to the north right now is a tremendous amount of farmland, which you hate to see that. Will some of that or all of that come in? We don't know yet. Right now, I think it's still designated to go either be developed or stay as rural. And then to the east, that brown strip there to the east is right along the other side of Milano Road and goes up that direction. The northeast section, right? Am I doing my directions correctly? That's, and again, another area that's being looked at. That'll probably be more housing development than business and economic development, whereas that east strip and then the strip and then that square that's at the bottom on the south end of town are more than likely being looked at for economic development, so business growth along those sides of the town. It's a big undertaking. It's a huge conversation. And so please, if you're interested, see me. We'll get you involved. The more conversation, the better. Our public works team, they do a lot. I thought this was a really great bullet point in that our public work team maintains 68 centerline miles of roads, 70 plus miles of sewer mains, 35 miles of storm lines, over 500 stormwater dry wells, 7 sewer pump stations, wastewater treatment plant, and roughly 3,000 streetlights. Oh, and they do that with 23 employees. So you keep that in mind, please, when, you're out and you're like, why are we flooding over here? They know about it. It's been an issue. They're working on it, kind of a thing. They do a tremendous amount of work. And we also, on top of that, have eight municipal buildings at about 80,000 square feet that they take care of. 14 parks, a cemetery. So they're a busy crew over there. There isn't a department in the city that isn't busy or has a lot going on, but the Public Works Department does a tremendous amount. Jerry Nelzine is the Public Works Director, and they do a really great job on that front. Let's see, so accomplishments this year for our Public Works team, completed the Maple Street turf project and lighting project. So we went through, that was a really big project there out for our Parks team and our Parks Board to develop and get that done. So now Maple Street Park can hold baseball tournaments and softball tournaments year round and later in the day, which is great. We have a fitness court now at Legacy Park. Community park, we've added more parking lots and expanded the bathrooms down there, which was direly needed. Let's see, we just repaved all the alleyways here in downtown, which was overdue and needed to be done. Things in process, so we've got a park plan for Auburn Farms. We're doing the South Ivy Street pedestrian project. So South Ivy between 99 and Southeast 13th is a little bumpy right now, but it will get better. It's supposed to, yeah, it's a little bumpy. So yeah, that'll be done here at the end of October. So I'm told, fingers crossed, that it may be the 11th hour as trick-or-treaters are getting out there, but it's supposed to be done by then. New sidewalks, improve the road. They've been putting in new sewer. So it's been a pretty major project. And one of the reasons, the impetus to the project was that was a county road. And so with this being completed, that will turn over and be under the jurisdiction of the city, so we'll be able to maintain that in a much better fashion than Clackamas County's been able to do. Plus, we're able to get the sidewalks added with both, Lee Elementary, the Adult Center, Ackerman. There's a ton of foot traffic, kids going to the high school, so a very long overdue project. And unfortunately, I think this was approved back when I first became mayor, so it's been 15 years in the works to get this done. So I'm glad that we're going to get there, though. Walnut Street Industrial Park, we're adding another road out of the industrial park to connect with 99. The goal with that is to alleviate traffic at Sequoia and 99, and also to bring truck traffic off of Haynes Road. So a lot of the traffic coming into the industrial park, especially Columbia, we've heard stories of semis lined up, at 4 in the morning on Haynes Road waiting to get into Columbia. And so the idea will be to pull them off of there and then wind through Walnut Street into the industrial park. We have approved, the Northeast 10th Avenue sidewalk and street reconstruction project. So we were just talking about sidewalks a little bit ago. And so that is an area that has direly needed sidewalks for a long time. And so the city worked with all the property owners on 10th. And so that'll be a really great addition on 10th to have sidewalks along there. And I know that's been something that Councilor Patton has been driving for since his first term as a city councilor. Public work fuel station, so part of last year, or a couple years ago, not last year, it seems like it was last year, we had the ice storm, and we learned really quickly that when, even though we have a great partner in Canby Utility in supplying power for the city of Canby, though that power comes through transmission lines that PGE owns and operates and maintains. And so even with the best intentions and the best work that we have, when they lose power, we lose power. And so what we found was that we got to the point where Public Works, Canby Utility, the PGE trucks, they got to the point where they were running on fumes. They were almost out of gas. And so what we've done is part of with just some long-term budgeting and strategy, but also using ARPA funds. We are building a fuel station out at the Public Works Department. So there'll be 3 different types of fuel tanks to be able to maintain and fuel up the trucks and vehicles that we need in case of an emergency. So that project will be starting here pretty soon. And then we've just approved a walking path along the logging trail. So you'll be able to come off the logging trail and exit right there on 99 between the logging trail and the storage place there. There'll be a ramp that'll come off of there that you'll be able to walk down and then walk into the Fred Meyer Shopping Center. So again, another project that's run a number of iterations for the logging bridge. Excuse me. So items of interest that I think you all probably, I'll let you read that and let that soak in for a minute while. So city budget, we are coming up on our budget season. We just did a mid-year budget meeting. So it was the council and our budget committee, which I do have an opening on our budget committee. If you're interested, see Eileen or Teresa, and they'll get you set up on joining our budget committee. But we're looking at situation. So every year we get together and the committee goes through the budget after city staff have compiled all their data, their wishes, hopes, dreams, and fears. And then the city manager goes through and says no. And then the council and the budget committee come together, and then we throw in our hopes, wish, dreams, and fears into the budget, and our city manager still says no, or she tries to. And so this year's no different. We're looking at the budget, the year as we move along for the rest of the year, just trying to, keep things as they are. We're not looking at our next city budget for next year. It's not going to be adding a lot of positions. It's going to be pretty much status quo. We're going to do pretty much by the bootstraps like we've been doing for the last couple of years. We're hoping, and hope is not necessarily a strategy, that we're not going to have to do any major scale backs. The council over the last 10, 15 years has really been committed to building their reserves and keeping their reserves for the rainy day. And we're, I think, going to have a rainy day here for maybe this year and maybe into next year. At least my armchair quarterback reading the tea leaves tell me that. But we will still, the city of Canby and government in general, we don't make anything to sell anything. We provide services, and unfortunately, those services cost, and they've gone up. Insurance has gone up. I mean, you all nodding your heads because you see it. It's those kitchen table issues that we all see, right? And so we, if anything, will have to make the hard decisions on what are those essential pieces that we as a city need to provide or should provide. And that's, this year's budget is no different in that conversation than it's been for the last 15 years that I've been on the council. We always have our conversation like that, like what is the necessary pieces that we need to do? And then if we can meet those, great. Then we'll go back through and figure out what we can add. The Canby Recreation Complex, and some of you may have heard that there was a big conversation about developing a large sports and recreation complex in Canby. It is not all the way dead. It's just, to quote Princess Bride, mostly dead. And a lot of that was because the group that we were working with, there had interest. They wanted 50 to 60 acres worth of land, and we just don't have that land within the city limits. And to go outside the city limits if you're a farmer, do you take, pennies on the dollar to build a park? Or do you wait for a developer that'll pay you what the land's worth? So those were some of the things that we were running into. So we're getting creative. We're going to be working with the school district to figure out how creative we can be as two organizations that both want to be able to provide recreation for our youth, at least from the school side of things, and us as a city to be able to provide recreation for all age levels. So more to come on that, I'm sure, in the coming year. The dog park, we do have a potential site for the dog park. That's going to be somewhere near where the Walnut Street piece is going to be punching through to 99, so there will be an area that's dedicated to that. We currently have a road maintenance task force, so right now we all pay a road maintenance fee There's a 3-cent gas tax at the pump, and then we pay street maintenance fee on our water sewer bill. And we have put together a task force to take a look at that and see if that is keeping up with what our needs are for our roads, to keep maintaining those. And if it is, then great, then we don't need to do anything. And if it's not, then they're going to make a recommendation to the council on what we might need to do from potentially increasing that fee. Park maintenance fee, we've been paying, we all have that as well. We're not looking at any major increase there. It's just making sure that it's being utilized correctly. Are we doing the right things with that fee? So are we taking care of the deferred maintenance? Are we getting ready for being able to add additional parks and be able to maintain them? It doesn't make any sense to add new parks if we can't take care of them. So we want to make sure that that's being correctly used. Water treatment plant, the Willamette and U. So many of you know we get our water from the Malala. And how does that taste? Like July, August? Right. So the Malala River is not keeping up with the demands of the city of Canby. And we are one of very few cities that have water rights to the Willamette. So as we have grown, the piece to that is that our water treatment plant is needed upgrades, and that is also something that it needs to grow as well and be able to keep up with how we're growing. And so that right now, that's mostly being handled by Canby Utility, but since we are a customer and you all are a customer, that impacts us as well. And so know that those are conversations that are occurring right now on what is that going to look like? What is it going to do to meet the needs? What's that going to cost? All of those things are going on as well. So again, I bring it up just as, again, for you all to know, these are the topics that we're working on. Housing, so much of our urban growth boundary discussion and comprehensive plan has to do with housing. The governor, our current governor and the previous governor both had very aggressive housing development strategies, and a lot of it built around density. And Councilor Padden and maybe Mayor Kaiser, I think the goal was 29,000 new dwellings a year was the strategy. And so with that, so the Metro Planning Organization a couple years ago instituted that they wanted to have 25 dwellings per acre. So the only way you can do 25 dwellings per acre is to go vertical. And so for us as a community, how do you peanut butter 29,000 new homes across the state? It's not everybody gets an equal amount. That's just not feasible, right? So that's part of the comp plan. That's part of the things that earlier I was joking with our planning commissioner about staring at the ceiling at 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock at night. And those are the things that I stare at the ceiling wondering, okay, what is that going to look like for Canby? What's that balance piece for us? And that's part of the housing needs analysis that we did. Is it single family homes? Is it more Dahlia style developments? Or is it more like the Sequoia Grove apartments on the south end of town? So those are those conversations that are occurring right now. Hotel development, we've already kind of talked about that earlier. So we do have some interest. Like I said, one developer said that they'll build it if we want to operate it. Did I do something? I'm out of Zoom time. That's it. The official cutoff. It's TV timeout. I can get some water. You ever been in that, like, out to dinner with friends and you're having great conversation and then there's this lull, right? They've correlated that to actually being, because of how much TV is generally watched, that's considered like a commercial break in your conversation, because as we watch TV and we're engaged and then the commercials come up. And so even our conversations, there's that like, okay, No, that's okay. Yes, go ahead, you can ask your question.
So that last slide, you were talking about points of interest.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them has to do with recreation.
Yes,
Back in the day, there was something here in the community that was called the community schools.
yes,
And it was a wonderful service.
it was fantastic, yeah.
It was across the gamut, and there was, and I guess I wasn't paying attention, but it just disappeared.
Yeah.
But that provided, what happened to that? And is there a possibility of something along those lines coming back to meet kind of that kind of a need?
I'm glad I've got somebody from the planning team and a counselor and a city administrator here. If I remember correctly, that was mostly handled by the school district. And so over the years, it just became, I think, an unnecessary budget issue with them to kind of move away from. Part of our conversation regarding even like a park and recreation district for the city or department means that would be something that, again, looking at hiring a parks director that would facilitate something like that coming back. And then partner, again, it would be a partnership again with the school to hopefully use, Ackerman as it is. And that's a whole nother conversation as well, is what's the school district, as many of you have been reading in the paper probably, that they have their own budget issues that they're going to be dealing with. And so what is that going to mean? So yeah, there's it's like Canby's moved into kind of being a teenager, like
Recording in progress.
kind of being a late teenager in terms of like growing pains, and we're not quite we're a city, but still want to be a town. And yeah, so there are those pieces that kind of we're trying to manage, and what is that going to look like? Yeah. Okay.
Would that administrator that runs that park thing run a hotel?
If the city, if we went with a city-owned and operated hotel, I suppose we could have the Parks District person operate that until the Parks District grew enough. But now that is not a popular option for the city council to want to do. So the other option is we're looking at, are there different incentives that we can offer a hotel developer? The big piece right now is interest rates being where they are. That's been kind of the holdup. And then the cost of building, steel, wood, et cetera, all those things have gone up. And so can they build a hotel and then can we provide enough of a draw, enough of heads on beds for the hotel to be a viable piece? And so that's where, when we look around us, the traffic at the airport, and then when we have the fair, and the event center has been adding a tremendous amount of activities and events there that bring people in for, an overnight or something. Our industrial park, we have a lot of international companies that bring people, salespeople in, and they stay in Wilsonville or Clackamas and not here in Canby. So there is, hoteliers have said Canby is a place to build a hotel. It's just a matter of when the moon and stars line up. Pardon me? Oh, is the video? Oh, is the video not on? Thanks.
Is our motel, I've heard it's kind of creepy, is it used at all?
The motel that we currently have is used frequently, and there's an organization, Mayor Kaiser, who's the organization that partners with Motel 6 here at times? Thank you. There's an organization called Ant Farm, and they, during the cold snaps that we have had, worked with our police department and our fire district to provide housing for some of our homeless residents, and so they would rent a room at the motel for those people to be able to stay warm and whatnot, and even some of our seniors that just are having a hard time keeping the heat on. So outside of Canby, highway development, So part of my job, part of my responsibilities being the mayor, I also sit on, I'm the co-chair to the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, which deals with land use, housing, and transportation. And I am also on the committee for the Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation. Really what that is just it's representatives from Clackamas, Washington County, Multnomah County, and Hood River County, and we get together every other month and hear kind of what ODOT's got planned for our region, and we try to influence as much as possible. It's very Portland-dominated group, so for us in the rural parts, so us here in Clackamas County, and then those that live in Hood River County, it's a little bit of a battle on those meetings to get projects through and worked on. As many of you, I'm sure, have been following the state legislature, there's not much in the way of new highway development or road development that they're looking at doing, that any funds and budget allocations are going to go to operations and maintenance of current projects or current areas. And so myself and Mayor Kaiser have been battling because part of it is that they removed funding from the Abernathy Bridge and the 205 expansion to move those funds over to the Rose Quarter project and whatnot. And so those were funds that were dedicated through a House bill. And so now we're back going, how does Clackamas County get the short end of the stick on that one? So, and which leads me to the bullet point on tolling. The governor did put a pause on tolling. Doesn't mean that it's not still going to be an option by the state legislature to do tolling or some sort of a value pricing or vehicle miles traveled in that regards. I don't know what the $1 billion fine that ODOT just had is going to impact things, but I still think that there's probably going to still be some state revenue pieces that will be put upon us regarding our roads. The 50-30-20 distribution piece, so with highway dollars, there's a shared, so the amount of money that's collected, the breakdown is 50% goes to the state, 30% goes to the county, and 20% comes down to the cities that we can then use for, making part of, like when we go to apply for a transportation grant of some kind, we can use those dollars, that 20% that we've saved up, to use that as matching funds to maybe get a project started or a project finished. What the state legislature has been talking about is doing away with that breakdown and actually having more of it settle at the state than at the county and at the city. And again, focusing on their operations and the maintenance and not necessarily new. So the governor has said that she wants to protect the 50-30-20. She spoke to a group of mayors not too long ago. She brought it up, but my sense was that nothing is off the table for conversation, though. So we're hoping as a city that we at least keep our 20% in that regards, because that's not always a lot, but when we're talking about projects and helping to match, like on South Ivy Street, or we want to take over North Red and North Pine Street, those are projects that we want to try to take on, but we don't always have the money to do those. That's where that 20% comes in.
Is that 20% cities all over Oregon?
Yes, yeah.
It's like Canby and every other city.
Yes, yeah. So then that pot gets, there's probably a population formula that goes into that. So, with us being 18,000, so how many people are in the state, break it out by each municipality, and that's where the 20% comes into play. So, yeah. A bill that we are watching is the recreational immunity. So I don't know if many of you have been following that. There was a lawsuit by an individual of the city of Newport. She was walking from the parking lot to the beach, tripped, injured herself, and then felt that was the city of Newport's responsibility to maintain that trail. And so, and we have, in our parks, we have recreational immunity. Means if somebody gets injured, we can't be, so if, Jim's kids are at the park and they're running around and they collide into each other and hurt themselves, they can't come after the city for damages, right? So that's the immunity piece on the recreation side. And so what was being claimed was that that area was not part of the park, that belonged to the city. And so that has moved up to the state Supreme Court. And so they gave the state pretty much like a stay, like, we're requiring the legislature to look at it. So there is currently a couple of bills. And if it doesn't pass where we get the recreational immunity, then cities are going to have to look at how what does that look like for trails, and how does that look like getting to and from parks? And, does that change how we design parks or upgrades that we've got to make to prevent, injuries and things like that? So it's just one of the bills, one of the 3,000 bills that are being talked about at the state legislature right now. And so, I belong to a couple of different mayors groups that watch a number of these bills. And so right now, Mayor Kaiser and I are very busy, and so is city staff, kind of reading up on all the different bills and where they're at in process. So, and that's the update on the city. You guys are all informed. You are totally great and know everything that's going on. Yes, so now we have time for question and answer. So yes.
Is there any update on what's supposed to be happening with the closure of Knight's Bridge?
So there was a period in time where the county was going to do some work on Nice Bridge at the same time that 99E was going to be done. Fortunately, common sense ruled the day, and so they moved that project, and I believe that that's going to be happening. Eileen, is that this fall, or Ryan?
I thought it was pushed to this summer.
This summer, okay.
It's for like a year, correct?
It's going to be pretty substantial, almost. They're not going to take it down to the studs, but they're going to come pretty close to a pretty major rebuild of that bridge. So it'll be an inconvenience for a while. Yeah.
I just feel like everyone needs to be mentally prepared.
Yes.
For 99s.
Yeah. No, I think mentally prepared is true. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Regarding park development, there is a plan that has been proposed for a park west of, or rather south of Lotus at 19th. I've seen the layout of the way that the park is to be built. They show one handicap available parking space. However, there is space at the north end of the park if a tree that is proposed is moved back about 20 feet on the west side, or rather on the north side of the park. And so I propose that we looked into that additional parking can be provided on the northeast end of the park.
So I believe we're talking about is it the Dodds Park we're talking about, Jim? That one. So fortunately for you, we have a member of our park advisory board here, and then the staff member that staffs that committee. So they have heard your ask, and I'm sure that they will take a look at it.
Okay, I told her the wrong area. I said west and I meant east. Or vice versa, I'd have to talk to her again and get the location.
Yeah. So we've got that noted for sure. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Question on the future, I think, a proposed traffic signal at the corner of Township and Ivy.
Yes.
And can you just give us a little history on the criteria that moved that forward, that the need was there for that? And also when that project you felt would be, how long would it take to be completed and when it would be completed?
So, yeah, so if you didn't hear, so he's asking about, Southeast 12th, no, sorry, yeah, no. Thanks. South Ivy and Township where they connect. I live off of 13th, that's where I got confused. They're talking about, so that's all being redone, and there is discussion of putting a traffic signal at that intersection. I'm not sure if that's going to be part of the initial phase of the project, or is that a later add-on? And I'm looking at our planner, Ryan, if he knows.
I'm actually not sure.
Okay.
I believe the warrant for it is not there right now, and so they were looking at future projections, and that at some point in the future, it may be warranted.
Okay.
But I don't know the details.
So the trigger for that is going to be how much development continues to occur on the south end of town. So it'll be, it'll truly be how much development occurs in the car counts that will trigger that at that particular intersection. With the construction that's been going on, it does, if you come down township into South Ivy, making that right or left onto Ivy can be challenging because it's just the way the layout is. So I know that is part of the conversation. It's just going to be a matter of when that occurs. And so that's going to be traffic studies for sure.
Nothing happening right away.
Yeah, I know that it's a signal and not a roundabout. I know that much. So I don't want a roundabout there, but yeah, so more to come on that for sure. What else? Yes, ma'am.
Any chance they could make the pool a little warmer?
So the question was, can they make the pool warmer? That is, in the dream of dreams, the pool would be bigger, and it would have a heated, lap area, and then a not so heated, area to the pool as well. It's a fine line. I'm not sure what all of that entails in terms of how to make it warmer. We can definitely look into seeing what is the best temperature for the pool. So yeah, I know like some of those that use it for exercise definitely want it warmer, and that versus those that are just there to enjoy kind of the refreshing pool aspect. So no, I know that's been a question before. What else? Yes, hello.
Hi. Are there proposed sites for the hotel?
There are, I think, 3 different locations that have been identified as potential hotels. Yes. I'm not at liberty to say. Yeah.
Is there any chance that they're considering the open area down by the Willamette River off township?
That I can tell you is not in the cards. Yeah, so that was, and we know that because we were talking about the whole recreation complex. That was a site, that area came up in conversation. And because most of that property is in the county, and it's a protected like habitat wetlands area. And so, it won't be down there. But I know that we have sites that we've recommended. Yeah. Yes.
Can you give a quick, 30,000-foot overview of where the comprehensive plan is and UGB expansion and what the next steps are?
30,000-foot level. Let's see. So we just had, there is a comprehensive plan planning committee that's meeting on a pretty regular basis. And so the last meeting was all about the UGB expansion. So we really went over those areas on the map that were all in brown. It was just doing a deeper dive into what those areas are currently and what they could be looked at in terms of development down the road. Is that like the more northern part of that? So that'd be the north side of Canby. Probably that's mostly going to end up being residential. The areas, like I said, to the east and the south, and even perhaps that northeast corner on that map. I think I can go back. Yeah, so that northeast corner that we're looking at could be actually a mixed-use development piece. So highway, commercial into different levels of housing, whether that be, higher density housing down to, more single-family homes. Most of the property that we're looking at in the expansion aspect on the right, so the east side, that would probably more likely be industrial land. So that's where the conversation left off, is kind of there are some smaller pieces in there. Do we add it? Is that part of the conversation? Not part of the conversation? And so right now, it's just a lot of like, what land should we annex and why? What's the justification for it?
How does, that Canby has some of the best prime anywhere, in the world. And to see it, the northwest area here being developed, it makes me sick.
Yeah, so the comment about, losing our farmland the way that we have been, it is interesting. And again, it's hard. It really, really is. It's a mixed bag. I enjoy the fact that, where I'm at on the south end of town, I can, to the left of me is empty farmland, and then across 13th, it's empty farmland and Filbert Farm. To the right, it's the tract housing development that we live in. That's the downside to the growth piece. Oregonians hate density and they hate sprawl. So what is that? How do you meld those together? And I think also we're seeing as families have grown and changed, next generation don't want to be farmers. And so what then? What does a family do that's sitting on acres of land that family doesn't want to farm? Does it become part of a bigger piece? Does it become corporate farming? What do you do? I remember when I was first elected, running into Mr. and Mrs. Tofty out and about town, and one of the things, so Mrs. Tofty said to me, she's like, you know what our best crop was? And I was like, no, I don't, not the slightest. She's like, houses. That was our single best crop that we grew on our property. And that's hard. They loved it. They wished they could still, and they wished, she did go on to say that she wished that they still could farm it, but they just didn't have it in the family to want to continue to do it. Now, fortunately, they've continued to lease a lot of that land to other farmers in the area, but it is getting harder to do. And talking with one of the families that have a lot of the farmland on the north side of town, what they're running into is our trucks. We have to move, large pieces of farm equipment from our, our barns and things on the north side of town to get to either the deeper south end of town or out of town. And we're having to, how do we get around the narrower roads and the traffic? And how do we get combines up and down? And my coworkers laugh at me when I say, I'm sorry, I'm late. I got stuck behind a combine leaving Canby. They think I'm kidding. And so I would take pictures. Like, no, like this is Canby, right? And we have John Deere tractors that run down the street. And, I know Scott knows what I'm talking about. They have it in Malala as well. And so, yeah, that's probably the hardest part of the growth that I've seen, and is coming to grips with that impact on our agricultural way of life that Canby has grown and been built around.
And how does that, if land is zoned as exclusive farm use, how can that be taken out and then developed? Because we as landowners can't do that. And then, to expand the urban growth boundary, there's so much land that's not prime farming.
So a couple years ago, now probably closer to more 12, 15 years ago, there was a whole process of putting land in urban reserve or rural reserve or undesignated. So the lands that were put into the rural reserve are just that, they're reserved rural. That will be, and it's supposed to be a 50-year plan. So for the next 50 years from that time, that land that was designated rural was going to be farmland. The land that was designated, undesignated as neither one, it would be part of an urban growth boundary expansion, because you could leave it, if the owners wanted to continue to farm it forever and ever and ever and ever, they had that option. It wasn't necessarily going to be at play for development until they wanted it to be that way. And then there were areas that were going to be urban reserve. and that was going to be strictly going to become housing or economic development. So those that are in that urban piece that still have farmland, and whenever they decide that they no longer want to farm that land or they want to sell and have it be developed, then that's on them. And by expanding the boundary, it just enables them to be able to do that and then annex into the city, be within the urban growth boundary. If you're outside the urban growth boundary and you want to come in, we can't until we expand the urban growth boundary again. Does that help answer that? I know it seems a little.
Yeah, I think it's a big.
It is. Yes, Councilor Patton?
I think it would be good to point out that you are looking at, all the brown area is the study area, which
Right.
is about 1,600 acres of land. In the preliminary study that's been done, it may only need to be about 500 acres of that land would need to be brought into the urban growth boundary. And that is for 20 years. And Canby's current plan is 30 years old. So if we stay on track, the next time we do it, it might be less land. So it's only about a third of the land that you see up there is actually even being considered to be brought
Thank you.
into the urban growth boundary.
Yeah, so it could be whole chunks like that or small pieces of all of those. So it'll all depend on kind of the study that we're doing as a city, but also when we submit it to the state and the different land policymakers look at it and decide maybe they decide something different for us. So that's a great point. Thanks, Jason. What else? Yes, sir.
We live close to Territorial.
Okay.
You know, that Locust, Holly area.
Okay.
Where some new developments has just gone in. And I had to laugh when the sign advertised, it said, starting at $600,000 or $800,000. These houses are not being built for young Canby families. So who are you building these houses for, you know? You know, it's no good. It's not, 600 used to buy you a Street of Dreams house, not a ranch in Canby, you know?
So on one of the slides, I think I made a note about, you know, what is it, what does affordable housing mean, right? So my wife and I, when we bought in Canby, it was a step and a half for us. And if we were to try to come and buy the same house now, we wouldn't be able to touch it. It'd be really a struggle. We'd be house rich and cash poor. That is a big conversation that myself, I know Mayor Kaiser, we're in those meetings on a county and regional level and chipping at the state about what does that mean and what do you call affordable? You know, for us as a council, that's part of the housing needs analysis that we just did for the comprehensive plan. How do we get there? Some of it's market driven. You know, builders, that's why they build up and not out. So, you know, like a single level ranch style house is less common than I'm able to maximize a piece of property at 5,500, 7,000 square feet for a home and just go vertical, you know, and I'm able to ask top dollar for it because that's the demand for it. Who's buying those houses? People relocating out of Portland. There are people coming from California, other parts of the state. Canby's a desirable place to live. And so that's the challenge. So we as a council, one of our goals is to, like, how do we figure out how the days or the ability to build something that's 250,000 or 300,000, those are gone. We missed that window is sailed. So now it's like, how do we build something that's 350 to 400,000? You know, that's maybe it's 900, 1,200 square feet for a young family to start in at, or, you know, seniors to be able to downsize out of their big home into something that's smaller and more manageable. That, if you have, I am open. If you have any ideas on what we should be doing to fight that fight, please let me know. Because I feel like sometimes I'm running up against a brick wall when I go down to the state, and there's this constant conversation of affordable, and, well, what does affordable mean? And I mean, even renting an apartment in Canby is still $1,800. I mean, I don't know. It's a lot. Higher than that, so 2,800, is that for a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom?
3-bedroom.
Third floor. Is there no elevator? Got to truck the stairs? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. That's, again, those are one of those things that I've probably been fighting that fight for a long time. I know Councilor Patton, he and I have talked about that as well, as how do we do that? Ryan too. I mean, we come with great ideas, and is it, cottage clusters, or is it, smaller housing developments? Then you got to fight, well, is a developer going to be willing to build smaller homes at a fraction of their, their profit margin? Well, and then how do we keep people, investors, from buying up all of the smaller homes and turning them into rentals? Yeah, those are the fights that we're fighting over right now. So, see, I wish I had a better answer for you. I just, I really do, because that is one of those things that's been hard to do. Dan?
Well, the question, I don't know who asked the question. So the question is an interesting one, and we deal with this all the time in the meetings. The issue that we have, one of the issues that we have in Canby is that the people that buy those houses that you're talking about, who do we build, who are those houses being built for? They don't work here. They work elsewhere. I heard a statistic in one of the meetings that we were at the other day that 80% of the people that live in Canby work out of Canby. 80% of the people that work in Canby don't live in Canby. And that's why we have the traffic here. That's why we got cars lined up on Barlow, all the way to Wilsonville. So it is, the question you asked was, who were we building those for? We're building those for people who don't work here, because we don't have the jobs that commiserate with the income to afford $600,000 to $800,000 houses. And the struggle that we struggle with is that, we can give the builders incentive to do that. But the bottom line is if he can build that house for $250,000, but if he can sell it for $600,000, he's going to sell it for $600,000. And we as a city, we can't control that.
Yeah.
That's not so when these people talk about what is affordable housing, what is affordable? I mean, I'd love, my kids were fortunate to buy a house that went at the sheriff's auction. And so that, they get to live here in Canby. But if they hadn't done that, they wouldn't be able to live in Canby. And so that's struggle. It's just an ongoing discussion that we have over and over and over again. And I'm not really sure that there is an answer.
Yeah, Dan, I appreciate that, Dan, because it's a jobs piece as well. It's a conversation, again, as a council, do we try to steer, future growth in the industrial park to be more server farms, or, like tech type things which draw those types of jobs? Is it trying to draw more lawyers and doctors to have offices here in town? So, but then that changes the economic piece of the city as well. So, Miss, you had a question, and then I'll come to you, Scott.
So, I hear you saying that the state is saying that, the city of Canby has to have a growth plan, but has the state come back with some new roads? Like ingress and egress in Canby is pretty scary. There's 99, there's Smart Road. So when there's fires and things like that, you can't get out of town. So it's like, it would be nice to grow, but how can you grow if the state doesn't come back with the road?
So that is, I would, if you come up with the answer to that one, you yourself you'll have the admiration of every city manager and elected official at your feet. So Oregon has a really interesting way on how they develop roads. So they would, and Washington County is able to do it a little differently, which is good on them. They actually take the advantage of like building the road, so build it and then they will come. Here, the rest of like the Willamette Valley and Portland metro area and whatnot, it's build it and then we'll figure out the roads. And so that's where we run into a lot of the problems with the congestion aspect. For example, if you've been out Happy Valley and beyond, there's this project called the Sunset Corridor. Okay, well, the first phase of the Sunset Corridor took 25 years to develop, and so they have got the first phase done, but as they're trying to fund, not even build yet, just find the funding for phase 2, the housing development along that stretch is enormous. But it's build first, then figure out where the roads are going to go after. That is purely a legislative ODOT, Oregon Transportation Commission quagmire that I have yet to understand. And so we're constantly, Scott, Mayor Kaiser and I are on the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee. We are constantly trying to figure out how to put an oval peg into a square hole on some of these transportation projects, and it's really hard. And then and not to slam the state or anything like that, but there's a lot of wants for multimodal, so bikes and pedestrians, so roads are competing with bridges and bike paths and, those kinds of things as well. So all those dollars, they're all fighting for that pot of money. And like I just said on an earlier slide, if their funding is going to be just for operations and maintenance, there's not going to be anything new for the next probably 5 years if on the way that they're talking on the budget standpoint. So yeah, that's another answer that I wish I had. Those are two things that I think I know we as a council have been talking back and forth with, and Mayor Kaiser and I with the other mayors have the same thing. Yeah, I wish they would flip it around and worry about where the roads are going to go before they go and build, more houses or more buildings, period. Mayor Kaiser, you had something, and then I'll go back to Councilor Patton.
Just to touch on this housing strategic plan and this UGB, literally, this has made all of our planning departments absolutely nuts. The state has put out a cookie cutter plan and said, make it work in your city. And then a little way in, they change a rule. Next way in, they change the rule. Then they come at us and they say, we want density in all your cities, but you're gonna have to change your infrastructure. You're gonna have to make your pipes grow, your roads widen. Well, Walla only has 211 going right through the middle. It can't be widened, and I haven't been paved in over 20 years. And 205 coming in, we're gonna have diversion going right down it. With the tolling coming in, we're gonna have diversion going down it. And so literally, it's an almost unattainable goal for our planning departments. And the end goal is we either figure it out or the state has threatened our cities that they will come in and take over our planning departments. So understand your planning departments right now are absolute superheroes in trying to figure out areas, especially something as nice as that. We want ours in one area at the north end of town, and the state is telling us at the south end of town, and it has a 700-foot elevation drop. So the developer's gonna have to bring at least 5 pump stations in at $2 million apiece, which totally defeats the governor's purpose of low-income housing. As far as low-income housing goes, it's a developer's market. The city, we can't control what they sell houses for, and as soon as a city goes in to battle a developer, there's this court called LUBA. And if we go to LUBA, win or lose, the city still loses.
Yeah.
It's laid out for the developers because the governor has the developers on these committees telling us what to do.
Yeah.
So it's a huge battle in every city in the state right now. And there's a lot of money going into planning and development, trying to figure out a plan that has no map to get there.
I'm going to go to Councilor Patton real quick, and then I'll come up to you there.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, in your presentation, it was mentioned about the emergency preparedness plan.
Yeah.
So Canby Fire, Canby PD, and other organizations within the city are keyed in on that. And so that is one of the things that is considered in that emergency preparedness plan is how would we evacuate the city? So even though we might not have the infrastructure to get everybody out all at once, there are eyes on that problem. It is at the forefront of our disaster teams. And so, there is a more of a plan than we're gonna wet this paper, throw it on the wall and see if it works. So
Yeah.
there is some work done there.
Yeah. Your question.
I was just wondering, these people at the state that are putting all these demands on the cities, are these the people we elected, or are they appointed committees, or just the bureaucracy? Who's forcing these unrealistic demands on cities?
To answer your question simply, yes, all of the above. Yeah, it really is, it's elected, it's appointed, it's, and that's, to the point that we deal with in some of the development aspects, there is oftentimes those course corrections in the code, the mandates coming down from the state. There's bills or laws put into place that we call them unfunded mandates. Like, we joke as a council that we've become very proficient in the use of the words may and shall. We may do this, but then the state will often say, you shall do this. And then that leaves our city administrator going, okay, with what money do we execute this shall, right? Or great, this project that we're ready to pull the trigger on now gets bumped further out because now the cost has gone up. And so now we've got to plan 2 more years of funding to get to that project to get it done. So real simple, yeah, it's all levels. I always joke, Councilor Patton and I joke about, like, if you take a cookie and you mash it, right, and you take out the big chunks that are left, that goes to the federal, and then you take some more, the next size down, and that goes to the state. And then by the time you're done, all the little crumbs that are still left there, that's the city's portion. Again, so we talk about the pool being duct tape and baling twine sometimes. Trying to figure out how to get things done. It is. We go and we lobby our state legislators on things that home rule is a big conversation for us as mayors. We want to maintain our home rule, and that is we want Canby to be able to manage Canby. We want Canby to grow on Canby's terms. We don't want it to grow on Portland's terms or Eugene or Pendleton's terms. They're totally different. Allow us to have that bigger input, and that's what a lot of us on the council and other mayors across the state are fighting for, that erosion of our home rule. So
One size doesn't fit all.
one size does not fit all.
So you guys are doing a good job.
Thanks. I appreciate that. We have our moments, We're not perfect. What else can I answer for y'all? Are your heads spinning? Yes, sir.
In the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned some plan that we want to have 29,000 new housing units. And so the state is kind of saying, you need to have, the land to build so many more new units.
Correct.
Does the city have a lot to say, no, we're good, we like where we are now, forget, we don't want to build and put in another 2,000 homes?
Okay, so no, we can't, because the state has stated that here we go, you shall have ample developable lands in your city to meet X amount of housing development targets every year. Okay, so that's part of the question. How could we turn it off? Talk to me afterwards, I'll tell you. Sandy has seemed to do an ingenious way of shutting off development in their land, in their city for right now. But that's created a whole bunch of other different problems that they would probably prefer to be able to develop than what they're going through. So Sandy ran into a problem where they don't have adequate wastewater treatment. And so the state basically came in and said, well, you're done developing until this gets fixed. The reverse of that, though, is the headaches with that side of it are way greater than had they been able to just try to fight the development fight. Yeah, so.
And this is about the state, all states really now to build more affordable housing, right? So this is
It really is, it's a, yes, and I think it's not even just, I think the whole workforce, affordable, all of those can be interchanged. I think it's just a matter of housing. But again, it comes down to, Oregonians don't like sprawl, and we don't like density. So how do you develop 29,000 new dwellings a year to meet the demand, and then it gets into, we want to be able to provide housing for the homeless. Well, not all those that are homeless are houseless, or not all those that are houseless want to be in houses. So like what's in that, see, now I'm getting into a whole bunch of other layers of that whole conversation. Yeah.
Is there a way that the state provide tax incentives, public-private partnerships,
Yes, they're doing all of those things. And again, at the end of the day, will a developer do the good thing and the right thing and go, yes, I'm willing to take a shave off the bottom line to be able to meet this need? There are a couple of them. There's one in Central Oregon, Hayden Homes, that they have a whole different arm to their development team, and they do just that. They do a tremendous amount of work to try to meet that need in Central Oregon. We just need more developers that are willing to do that, and that's a challenge sometimes. Yeah, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Traveling at night, the road between Canby, Silverton, with other small towns, intersections often have accidents. People are trying to travel freeway speed on a road designed for horse and buggy.
Yeah.
Is there a way that cities, county, could put in traffic lights at more intersections or find some way to make the roads safer?
So, yes, there are ways, and yes, those are conversations that I'll just speak to Clackamas County because I'm in those conversations, that those are often viewed as projects that cities need to apply for extra funding to get, to add traffic lights or to put in more lighting. Again, sometimes it's the cost of putting that in right at the time. It's really, it's a give and take kind of piece. So yeah, for the county to make the decision to do that, then they're also in the same boat where they've got to pull money from A to take care of, items B and C. So it all depends on where they see the priority at. I know that they log accidents, they log those busier intersections. When we were talking about, Mayor Kaiser brought up the tolling, and we were looking at the diversion that would occur from, people trying to get around it. Like, we see a dramatic increase in the amount of cars that will come down 99, and I, being in those conversations, like, was trying to tell the traffic study guys that use their computer analysis that their computer analysis is wrong. Traffic is like water. It'll find the path of least resistance. And so that means that it's not just going to stick to the main ways. It'll find any back road that they can find that they're not going to sit in traffic on. And so how do they, bring it back to your question, how do you plan for all those different changes and different, traffic paths? It's a lot. But I do agree with you. Some of the country roads can be pretty dark, but then how do you run these days is it solar powered or whatnot? I don't know. I'm sure that right now the focus is, within the cities to do kind of those things on their own.
The county apparently keeps statistics too, so that would probably include is Wilsonville and this, where there's the roadways like that, there have been 7 people die there.
Yeah.
But if they say the town says not enough deaths in Washington.
Well, we have that with, South End Road out here. There's a lot of accidents that are on there as well. So I will take one more question or no more questions, whichever. All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming here tonight. Thank you. there's a question you didn't ask, but you wanted to ask, I'll be hanging out for a little bit and I'll gladly answer it for you as best I can. Thank you all for coming, and good night, Canby.